mind, which often just gets every element about your regular life. Like, that's kind of why we don't even dream and have cell phones in our dreams. Like, have you ever noticed that? Like, we don't text when we dream. So like the context you have with a person, place, or in this case a driver's license, it's gonna be way more different in your dreams than in real life. So it's really hard to trust this episode. But if we look at an episode like No Free Rides, the episode has SpongeBob taking his final boating exam of the year. As usual, he messes up big time, even running over the freaking French narrator, which leaves him with a score of negative 224.
600.
But despite the failure, SpongeBob is ready for next year, but Mrs. Puff, dreading another year of his terrible driving, in the most desperate move ever, Mrs. Puff offers SpongeBob an extra credit exam, a single 10-word essay on what he learned in boating school. Though SpongeBob gets so stressed trying to come up with the words that he has a mini meltdown, but eventually Mrs. Puff passes him and presents him with a license with the same date of birth as the one in his dream. Okay, so this is a validation that maybe the dream situation was valid. I mean, not maybe, like he eventually gets a car, and in this episode it clearly wasn't a dream. So yeah, we 100% know for certain that SpongeBob was born July 14th, 1986. Okay, so now that we have his date of birth, we need to figure out one last thing. What timeline does SpongeBob live in? Like, again, the show came out in 1999, but is this actually taking place in that time? Because if we look at shows like F is for Family, this show came out in 2015, but it takes place in 1970s. This being said, we can't just assume that the airing date of each episode represents the actual date of what, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even know how else to explain that. But, okay, hear me out. In the episode, SB129, Squidward is looking forward to a quiet Sunday morning to practice his clarinet. But just as he's about to play, SpongeBob's alarm goes off. It's so loud that it causes Squidward to accidentally swallow his clarinet. SpongeBob and Patrick show up at Squidward's door asking him to go jellyfishing, but Squidward keeps saying no. SpongeBob and Patrick just don't get it, and they keep asking him over and over until Squid finally loses his patience and just tells them that he'll never be ready. But to escape them, Squidward sneaks out of the back of his house and heads to the Krusty Krab, thinking that he'll finally have some peace and quiet. He hides in the freezer to get away from them and ends up getting locked inside. Then we fast forward 2,000 years.
2,000 years later.
Okay, the French narrator guy literally said it. Squid then gets discovered frozen in the Krusty Krab by Spongetron, a futuristic descendant of SpongeBob. And in this scene, we have the clue that we need to piece this whole thing together to figure out what the present day is in SpongeBob. Right now, we can see a calendar that states that today's date is March 6th, 2017. But since the French narrator stated previously that Squidward was frozen for 2,000 years, this means that the first season of SpongeBob was sometime in early 2017. Like, I don't know, maybe that's a reach, but it says it right there. You can't, I just feel like this is facts. So if we do the math correctly, 2017 when the first season not aired, but when it was lived in, minus 1986 when his license says he was born, in both Sleepy Time and No Free Rides, that means my boy SpongeBob is 31 years old. Thank you, everybody. I figured it out. Yeah. All right. This leaves me with one last question. Why does bro act the way he does? Like, I've talked about other theories about how SpongeBob could possibly be on the spectrum, but I think he might actually not even be in it at all. We all know SpongeBob is a terrible driver. In Mrs. Puff, You're Fired, we found out SpongeBob has failed the test 1,258,056 times. Like, how is it possible that a 31-year-old man doesn't know how to drive? There's like the Grandma's Kisses episode, which perfectly shows SpongeBob's childlike trait. SpongeBob gets super excited to visit his grandma's house, thinking it's all wonderful, and just like, he's very kid-like. He munches on cookies, licks the spoon, and listens to her story, all like in this innocence of a joy, like a joyous young man. And look, I'm not saying like there's nothing wrong with doing this, but it's clear that in many ways, SpongeBob never really grew up. Even from the start of the show, people have always treated SpongeBob like a kid. Like in the first episode, Mr. Krabs initially doubts SpongeBob's ability to handle the job of the Krusty Krab, not even Mr. Krabs knowing who he is, and basically dismisses him by giving him a made-up task. But here's the thing, I did a little research and this is kind of wild. Sponges in the real world are not like that. They don't have organs like a heart, brain, lungs. Instead, they're more like a collection of cells working together, filtering water to get nutrition, which is freaking insane. They're basically plants. Now, when it comes to aging, sponges do it very differently than us. You and I, we have a clear life cycle. We grow up, age, and Now, our cells are constantly dividing and replacing themselves, but this process slows down as we age, leading to the signs of aging we're familiar with, like wrinkles, weaker muscles, and memory loss. SpongeBob, on the other hand, he doesn't age like you and I. They don't even have a set lifespan. They just know sponges can live incredibly long. Like deep sea sponges, for example, they live in such a stable, cold environment, and this stability puts them in a position where they can grow very slowly and live hundreds, sometimes even thousands of years. There's like one famous deep sea sponge that's estimated to be over 11,000 years old. 11,000 freaking years. In comparison, the average human lifespan is around 70 to 80 years, which is like a blink of an eye next to something as ancient as SpongeBob. This could be the reason why he acts like a child and people in Bikini Bottom treat him like one, because in Sponge's term, he is one. In the same comparison we do between dogs and humans, like we say that 1 human year is equivalent to 7 years as a dog. And in SpongeBob's case, he ages much slower than us, thus making him a child even at 31. And again, the fact that the show hasn't explored his age already is actually kind of wild, considering they use like so many story plots from earlier episodes. I don't know why they just won't do it, but yeah, smash like, smash subscribe. Weird question, but have you ever considered the emotional impact of colors? Each hue carries its own unique message, evoking specific feelings and reactions. That being said, have you ever wondered what all the colors of the main characters in SpongeBob represent? Red, as you know, is all about power, energy, and a bit of greed. And Mr. Krabs is basically the poster crab for this. His red shell is like a big flashing sign of his never-ending chase for money. And the episode Clams is a perfect showcase for this. So Mr. Krabs hits this insane milestone, making his millionth dollar. And he's over the moon. He's bursting with energy and decides to celebrate by taking SpongeBob and Squidward clam fishing. But here's where it gets wild. SpongeBob actually hooks Mr. Krabs' prized millionth dollar, and a giant clam snatches it away. Mr. Krabs' world turns totally upside down, and his excitement flips to total despair, showing us exactly what this dollar meant to him. It's basically like a symbol of his power and success. He becomes obsessed with getting it back, to the point where he won't even let SpongeBob and Squidward eat until they find it. Bruh, like his greed and passion, that red hot intensity is just driving him absolutely bonkers. The saga continues with Mr. Krabs being devastated, and Squidward, though initially not caring much, gets roped into this mad quest. They even try to trick Mr. Krabs with a fake dollar, but nope. He is not falling for it. He goes into this frenzy, totally consumed by his need to get this dollar back. And get this, when he finally gets the chance to reclaim his dollar from the clam, Mr. Krabs makes an insane trade. He literally sacrifices almost his entire body for that $1. I mean, talk about dedication. This episode is a wild ride that tests everyone's limits, all sparked by Mr. Krabs' intense, fiery red passion for wealth. The episode also really brings to life how far Mr. Krabs will go for money, embodying that red energy of power and, oh yeah, a whole lot of greed. Now let's talk about Plankton and his green vibe. Green's all about growth and ambition, right? It doesn't really seem like Plankton, but that's kind of Plankton in a nutshell. Essentially, with his endless chase for the Krabby Patty formula, he is always eyeing Mr. Krabs' success at the Krusty Krab with a mix of envy and ambition. The episode The Algae's Always Greener is a perfect example of his relentless drive. Plankton, being his usual sneaky self, tries yet again to snag a Krabby Patty, but this time he's got a wild plan. He's gonna use a device to switch lives with Mr. Krabs. But once he steps into Mr. Krabs' shoes, things get chaotic. Plankton finds out that being Mr. Krabs isn't what it's all hyped up to be. For starters, SpongeBob comes in asking for a performance review. Plankton thinks he's got this, and he comments on SpongeBob's sauce usage, but SpongeBob totally overreacts, spiraling into despair. Then the mayhem cranks up a notch. SpongeBob's getting random promotions, Squidward's freaking out, and Pearl comes in demanding more money. And there's Plankton trying to handle it all with just $1. Customers are losing it, Squidward's messing up in the kitchen, and then to top it all off, the alarm goes off. And here's the real twist. Alternate universe Krab shows up, butt naked, trying to steal the Krabby Patty formula. It's complete chaos, but through all this craziness, Plankton starts to see that maybe chasing Mr. Krabs' life isn't the answer. The episode is a wild ride that digs into Plankton's ambitions and the whole idea of the grass is always greener on the other side. It shows how Plankton's green desire for success and growth can lead to some pretty unexpected realizations. Patrick, his pink vibe is all about being chill and kind-hearted. There's this one episode, Big Pink Loser, where Patrick's simple, laid-back personality really stands out. It kicks off with Patrick finding a trophy and thinking it's his. But plot twist, it's actually SpongeBob's. Then Patrick tries his hand at working at the Krusty Krab. But let me tell you, it's a total mismatch. I mean, the guy munches on the orders, he can't handle a phone call, and even sweeping turns into a hilarious mess. And here's the funny part. Patrick starts imitating SpongeBob like there's no tomorrow. He dresses like him, acts like him. It's like SpongeBob's got a pink twin. SpongeBob is freaking out, and Patrick, feeling down, calls himself a big pink loser. But then, in a classic Patrick twist, his laid-back, do-nothing style actually wins him an award for doing nothing. And he's stoked, embracing his lazy self again, and goes back to chilling under his rock. See, that's the charm of Patrick. His innocence and go-with-the-flow attitude always wins at the end. And even when he thinks he's a loser, he's just being himself, and that's actually what makes him awesome. Sandy Cheeks is like the solid, dependable friend in SpongeBob's zany world. Like, her brown color really matches her personality. She's super practical and really good at adapting to her life under the sea in Bikini Bottom. The episode Tea at the Tree Dome is a perfect example of how resilient and adaptable she is. It's also the first time she ever appears in the show. In this episode, Sandy's totally comfortable in her own space. The tree dome's filled with air, but for SpongeBob, it's kind of like a fish out of water situation. He tries so hard to fit into Sandy's world that he almost dehydrates because he's too shy to ask for water. Sandy's cool-headed and mature approach really stands out, especially when you compare it to SpongeBob's chaotic attempts to keep up with her lifestyle. SpongeBob's struggling to follow Patrick's weird advice about keeping his pinky up, and it just adds to the mess. The whole thing is a big lesson about understanding and adapting to different environments. And Sandy, she's got this practical way of solving the problem. She gives SpongeBob and Patrick water helmets to help them out. It's a simple solution that shows it's okay to ask for what you need, instead of trying to be something you're not. Sandy's character is all about the beauty of being straightforward and true to yourself. She finds joy in the simple things like her friendship with SpongeBob, even though they're two completely different species. This is a complete contrast to Plankton, who's always chasing something else, and then realizing that sometimes happiness is right where you are. Squidward, our turquoise friend, I really have a hard time saying this color, so please excuse me. But his color is all about creativity and a mix of emotions. Turquoise is like a symbol of his artsy style and his complex feelings. Take the episode Artist Unknown. It's like a whole art drama with Squidward and SpongeBob. Squidward starts off dreaming big about becoming famous for his art. Then SpongeBob, without even trying, totally outdoes him. Squidward's teaching SpongeBob how to draw, and SpongeBob just casually whips up a perfect circle. Squidward's feeling kind of jealous and insecure, seeing how SpongeBob's talent is showing him up. Enter Monty P. Moneybags, this art collector dude, and Squidward's emotional roller coaster just goes wild. He is desperate to be recognized, but it's SpongeBob's sculpture that catches Monty's eye. Now, when Monty loves SpongeBob's work and thinks Squidward did it, things get even more tangled. They try to move the sculpture and boom, it breaks. Monty's cool about it though, because he just asked Squidward to make another one. But yeah, he can't, because Squidward didn't do it. Now, facing his own artistic limits and feeling pretty down in the